You're born somewhere in Westeros, doesn't matter where. Because by the time you turn 10, someone in your village points at you and says,
"That one reads too much. Send him to the Citadel."
And that's how your whole life gets decided. Not by prophecy, not by destiny, but because you looked at a book longer than 5 seconds. You arrive in Old Town expecting wonder, magic, knowledge. Instead, you get a stone building filled with sleep-deprived men who smell like ink, stale bread, and academic disappointment. Welcome to the Citadel, Hogwarts, if Hogwarts refused to teach spells, and everybody had untreated vitamin D deficiency. Your trainers, senior maesters, greet you with the warmth of cold porridge. They explain the rule: no wives, no children, no power, no opinions, and no joy. That one's implied. Psychologically, this is identity foreclosure, when an institution decides who you are before you ever get the chance. Your whole self becomes Maester, whether the role fits or not. Your old life ends, your new life begins, and it begins with chores, the chain that chains you. To become a Maester, you have to earn links in a chain, one for each field of knowledge. You think, oh cool, academic achievement. Wrong. It's more like psychological hazing with homework. You study healing with 14th century medical accuracy, economics, taxes, which you will pay none of because you will own nothing, astronomy, staring at stars while developing back pain, history, mostly wars you will live to see repeated, ravens, your only friends, and higher mysteries, which is Citadel code for magic exists, but we pretend it doesn't because it makes us uncomfortable. You learn quickly that the Citadel hates magic, like nobles hate paying their debts. They insist it's fake. Then they write 5 chapters warning you not to touch it. That's called cognitive dissonance, holding 2 conflicting beliefs at once. Magic isn't real, but also, burn these books before it summons something. Meanwhile, forging each chain link takes months or years. And when you finish, you aren't promoted. You're just allowed to keep going. Your reward for success is more suffering. Congratulations, you're in academia. The oath of lifelong disappointment. Eventually, after a decade or 3 of tests, bruised knuckles, and 20 mental breakdowns, you take your vows. You swear to serve any noble that summons you, heal the sick, guide the ignorant, and never, ever enjoy life. Okay, they don't say that last one out loud, but it's heavily implied. You're assigned to a castle, maybe Winterfell, maybe the Dreadfort, probably some goat-smelling tower in the middle of nowhere. And when you arrive, you realize the first tragedy of being a maester. You've spent your entire youth studying to serve people who barely passed medieval kindergarten. You have 20-plus years of training, multiple academic fields mastered, practical and historical expertise, medical knowledge, the emotional scars of academia. Your lord has a sword, a bad temper, a literacy level somewhere between peasant and disaster. And that's the job. Master of science, servant of morons. Your day-to-day life becomes medieval customer support. Not even the good kind, the kind where you are permanently on hold, the customer is always wrong, and the customer also has the authority to legally behead you. You begin every morning with optimism, which is your first mistake. You approach the Lord with a respectful nod.
"My lord, perhaps don't execute the only farmers who pay taxes."
And he hits you with,
"Silence, Maester!"
Ah yes, economic collapse by lunchtime. Classic. Then the lady of the castle summons you at dawn.
"Maester, I'm itching everywhere. Fix it."
You examine her and discover the ancient, devastating disease known as laundry avoidance.
"My lady, that rash is because you keep wearing unwashed wool."
"Get me herbs, Maester!"
Right, because if herbs cured hygiene, Westeros wouldn't smell like a compost bin wearing armor. Then the prince, a child with the brain of a puppy and the power of a war crime, stares at a jar of wildfire.
"Maester, what happens if I poke it?"
"Maybe don't poke the wildfire with a stick."
"Why not?"
And in that moment you realize you're not a teacher. You're a medieval version of the "Are you smarter than a 5th grader" contestant. Except the 5th grader is armed, hormonal, and wearing a crown. You cite evidence, logic, and years of research. They cite, "Because I'm noble." This is textbook authority bias, the psychological glitch where people believe they're right simply because they outrank the laws of physics. You're the rational voice trapped between ego and chaos, a professional grown-up in a castle full of toddlers with lineage. Honestly, you're less a scholar and more a medieval therapist. Except your patients have swords, no boundaries, and a 50% chance of stabbing the messenger. Congratulations. You're now the only adult in a building run entirely by emotionally unstable trust fund babies. You're the doctor, but humans are the disease. As the only educated person within 5 miles, you perform approximately 12 jobs that should absolutely belong to separate departments. Medicine, accounting, Raven communication tech support, babysitting noble brats, secret keeping, against your will, crime scene analysis, relationship counseling, birth control for everyone but yourself, emergency disaster management, PR damage control, diagnosing plagues, pretending you don't hear treason. You have several titles, but none of them come with a raise. But here's the real kicker, the punchline of the entire medical tragedy. Your patients do not want your help. They want magic, miracles, and nonsense. You walk in with actual medical knowledge from the Citadel, and they look at you like you're the village idiot. You say,
Boil the water first.
They say.
What if we bleed the fever out?
You say.
It's influenza.
They say.
A demon is sitting on my chest.
You say.
Please stop drinking wine while pregnant.
They say. The gods will sort it out. You give them the cure. They choose the curse. Then, shocker, when they inevitably die, everyone looks at you like you personally assassinated them. Psychologically, this is scapegoating, blaming the nearest competent adult because accountability is hard and denial is free. You are now the official emotional support punching bag of the castle. The peasants blame you because they don't understand science. The nobles blame you because they don't want consequences. The gods blame you because, honestly, they're bored. You're the doctor, the therapist, the mortician, the IT guy, and the crisis manager. But somehow you're still the villain in every bad outcome. The irony? You didn't choose medicine. Medicine chose you, and then immediately regretted it. You know too much, and not enough. Because you actually studied history, you start noticing patterns long before your lord's 2 remaining brain cells can rub together. You know when a tax hike quietly becomes a rebellion. When a visiting knight means political danger and probably an accidental pregnancy. When winter is about to starve half the kingdom because someone forgot to plant barley. When a letter from the king is always bad news. Nobody writes from King's Landing to say hello. When dragons plus monarchy equals unemployment or incineration for you. But the problem? If you warn them.
Oh, look, the Maester is being dramatic again.
If you don't warn them.
You should have told us!
If you warn them too soon.
Stop speaking in riddles, old man.
If you warn them too late.
Why didn't you predict this? You're the smart one.
It's damned if you do, beheaded if you don't. Congratulations, you have unlocked role conflict, the psychological torture chamber where your job has mutually contradictory requirements, 0 support, and a 100% blame rate. Your entire career becomes one long game of pick the least stupid option and hope nobody dies. And because this is Westeros, someone always dies. You're a human library in a world of illiterates. You carry centuries of knowledge. But Westeros carries centuries of not caring. Most nobles can't read. Most soldiers won't listen. Most peasants think books are kindling with opinions. Your ravens understand you more than your employers. You could write entire treatises on economics, diplomacy, strategy, medicine, human psychology, warfare, agriculture, pest control, meteorology, and the physics of how not to get yourself killed. And the noble you serve will still ignore you because a red priestess saw a vision in the flames. Imagine graduating with PhDs in 7 subjects, only for your new boss to say,
My horoscope says you're wrong.
Magic exists, but you're not allowed to notice. You've seen unnatural things. Fire that behaves too intelligently. Corpses that don't stay corpses. Dragons that literally rewrite physics. Ice zombies. Prophecies that hit a little too close. And every time you witness something that violates the very laws of nature you studied for decades, your academic training whispers, observe, document, analyze. But the Citadel told you,
pretend magic doesn't exist. It's embarrassing.
Because according to the Archmaesters, magic is a superstition, an exaggeration, a myth, a PR problem for the Citadel. So now you have to maintain scientific integrity and institutional denial. While watching a ghost horse eat someone in front of you, this is institutional gaslighting. When an authority denies reality and forces you to deny it too, your sanity becomes a group project you didn't sign up for. All the responsibility, none of the power. When your lord's son gets sick, you fix it. When the realm changes rulers, you inform the house. When ravens bring news of war, you interpret it. When supply lines crumble, you calculate rations. When diplomacy fails, you write apologies. But when something goes wrong, it's not the lord, not the lady, not the heir. It's the maester's fault, always. You are the medieval equivalent of the IT guy, expected to solve everything, respected by no one. You are always suspect, because you serve all of Westeros, not just one house. Everyone thinks you're a spy. If you advise a lord too wisely, you're scheming. If you advise him poorly, you're sabotaging. If you disagree, you're disloyal. If you agree too quickly, you're plotting. It's called paranoia projection, when insecure people assume you're playing the game they're playing. You're not even on the board, but somehow you're blamed for every move. People die a lot, and you can't stop it. You trained for decades in medicine, read every scroll, dissected every rat, memorized every herbal remedy from A to Z. But medieval medicine is mostly hope, honey, heat, herbs, and occasionally screaming. You walk into every medical emergency like,
All right, let's see if the gods love you today.
because people die constantly. From everything. Literally everything. Childbirth. Statistically the deadliest hobby in Westeros. Wounds. Even paper cuts are life-threatening. Winter. Because hypothermia has a 100% crit rate. Infection. The silent killer starring in every episode. Nobles doing noble things. Duels, tourneys, questionable decisions, recreational warfare. Accidents. You'd be shocked how many people die falling off horses. Or drunk. Or both. The common cold. If someone sneezes twice, you start drafting their eulogy. And every time someone dies, all eyes turn to you like you personally stabbed them. You want to scream,
It's not my fault you treated a broken leg with prayer and red wine.
but you can't. So you bow your head respectfully as they glare at you like you just invented death. Worse, the more you learn, the more powerless you feel. Knowledge becomes a curse. You can see exactly what's killing people, but you cannot stop it. Their lives are shaped by bad hygiene, bad lords, bad luck, bad genetics, bad timing, and bad decisions made by people who think infection is a mythical creature. And slowly, you start to break down. You experience compassion fatigue, the psychological burnout that happens when you care so much, for so long, with so little success, that your emotional tank taps out. Your empathy gets tired. You've patched up the same kind of wounds 1,000 times. You've sat with crying mothers, desperate fathers, dying soldiers, and panicking nobles. And after years of that, something shifts. You stop flinching at screams. You stop hoping fevers will break. You stop believing that knowledge can save people who refuse to use it. You can heal wounds, but you cannot heal a broken system. You look around at the castle, the leaking roofs, the contaminated wells, the barefoot children licking questionable objects, and realize you're fighting nature, ignorance, politics, and probability with garlic and guesswork. And the system always wins. The psychology of being ignored. After years of giving advice that no one takes, something inside you cracks. You experience learned helplessness, emotional numbing, burnout, cynicism, detachment, professional despair. You become quiet, measured, bitter. You stop trying to prevent disasters and start predicting them. You are now clinically medieval. You outlive everyone. And that's its own curse. Because you stay inside studying while the nobles go out doing stupid things, you often outlive them. You see, lords rise, lords fall. Queens burn cities, kings lose wars, children die, heirs disappear, entire houses vanish. And you're still there, writing letters, tending ravens, and burying the same family for 4 generations. This is survivor's guilt, living long enough to realize longevity isn't a reward. It's a sentence. Your death is boring. When you die, it won't be glorious. Not in battle, not in prophecy, not in a ballad. You'll die hunched over a book, or coughing in a cold tower, or while mixing herbs at 3 a.m. after being awake for 3 days straight. Your chain will be passed to a replacement. Your ravens won't notice. Your lord won't remember your name. And the Citadel will send a letter that basically says, Maester expired. Send next nerd. Why it really sucks to be a Maester. It sucks to be a Maester because you devote your life to knowledge in a world that chooses violence. You study reason in a land ruled by emotion. You gather facts for people who prefer prophecy. You train for decades to serve men who learned everything they know from their mother's drunk boyfriend. You see the future coming, while everyone else is arguing about whose sigil is prettier. And the cruelest irony? You are the smartest person in every room, and the one with the least power to change anything. That's not wisdom. That's torture with a syllabus. If you were dropped into Westeros right now, would you choose to be a Maester? Or would you rather take your chances as a peasant with a shovel and a prayer? Drop your answer below. Smash that like button if your brain feels 30% more educated, but 70% more exhausted. Subscribe for ideas that stick, figures that sketch, and worlds that remind us. Sometimes the smartest people live the saddest stories. Ready for your next system update? Tap here and keep playing smart.